Are you really healed?
We are already demigods because of our smartphones.
There's a lot happening, in our world, especially in the mental health space.
Yeah, well, there is a lot happening. You go on social media, you turn on the news, and it's difficult. Our societal health is suffering right now. But how do we be better people? How do we actually evolve our consciousness? That our spiritual health is so undervalued in society right now. Until we make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to direct our life. I'm really excited about the potential of AI therapy.
This is the wave of the future, whether we like it or not. Welcome back to the Coachable Podcast. I'm your host, Tori Gordon, and today I have the honor of sitting down with a dear friend and one of the most insightful minds in the mental health space. Dr. Zand is back for the second time, and Dr. Zand is the founder of Anywhere Clinic, an innovative online telehealth platform for psychiatric care, and the author and creator of transformative approaches in mental health and recovery. And in today's episode, we're diving in deep into the most exciting trends in mental health, including the cutting-edge role of AI therapy, the process of integrating our shadow, sexual expression, and the role of psychiatric care in today's modern world. Dr. Zand is known for his holistic approach, helping people shift from not just surviving, but truly thriving. And I can't wait to share this conversation with you. So let's dive in. Welcome back.
Hey, Tori, it's good to be back.
So glad that you're here. Thank you for, your time, your medicine, your wisdom, obviously your support over the last several years in my life, my journey. You've had such a truly big impact in my professional world, in my personal life, and I just have so much respect for you and the work that you do and the way that you just lead with such a level of embodiment and integrity, and you have a real passion for the work, but you're like really committed to bringing this holistic care to the world, and that's why I want to have you back on and share more about what's happening in the mental health space right now.
Yeah, thank you so much for those kind words. Vice versa. We got to work together on so many different occasions and projects, and just the longevity of seeing your growth is amazing. I love what you're doing so transparently, right? Just out in the public. Let's make mental health cool. Yeah. It's nothing to be ashamed about or feel judgmental about. And you're such a leader in that initiative. So thank you. We've been through some fun stuff too. You're over at the retreat.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see where this continues to develop, and anything that, is supportive of you, supportive of just mental health and that journey for all of us. And so I co-sign everything you talk about. I love the education you bring out to the world.
Thank you. Yeah, being healthy is cool.
Yeah, right.
In every way, including our mental health. And you mentioned we were down in Puerto Rico back in December, which was a magical and transformational kind of week. We got to be down at your retreat center and your property, which just being on that land in general is healing.
Yeah, connecting to the earth again, just in general.
Yeah.
Had anything else on top of that?
Exactly. Adding in transformative practices and embodiment and stillness and being in nature and all the things. For me, that was like a shift. It was a really profound way and great way for me to end the year, to start this year with a new energy. And there's a lot happening, in our world, especially in the mental health space. What are you seeing as the most exciting thing that's happening in mental health right now?
Yeah, well, there is a lot happening in the world, right? You go on social media, you turn on the news, and it's difficult. Our societal health is suffering right now. I believe that we need to find tools and strategies to protect ourselves, because if you just turn the TV on or open your phone, you're already subject to pathways of mental distress.
Yeah.
So while we were talking about the earth and how that is healing, I actually think if you go to the flip side, there's also technology that can be healing.
Yeah.
And what I'm really most excited about in mental health right now, which I think is a little bit new, I talk to my patients about it all the time, and still the majority is like, what are you talking about, doc? Right? And it takes a little education, a little encouragement. I know you got onto it, and that's AI therapy.
Yeah.
It's that self-guided, really, AI-assisted therapy. It's the ability for us to just self-regulate, check in with ourselves. It's almost like an interactive journal that allows you to just have someone kind of kindly talk back to you while you're journaling and guide you a little bit and give you some comfort and validation if that's what you need, give you some exploratory questions. So I'm really excited about the potential of AI therapy. We're actually using it in our practice already. We're building tutorials for our community so that they can understand how to make this just a daily tool.
Yeah.
In between checkups, it's just check-ins with yourself all the time. So really excited about AI therapy. What are your thoughts? I know you've gotten a little experience with it.
I have. I mean, you and I offline have been talking about this and experimenting with it. And what I have found, it's like, this is the wave of the future, whether we like it or not. It's here, and we can either get on board or we can resist, change. And for me personally, I'm just all about efficiency, and I'm all about working smarter, not harder, and just channeling my energy, you know what I mean? Being really intentional. And so to have sort of like a pocket coach or a pocket therapist, a pocket friend that can be there to, when you need it in the moment is so invaluable, because sometimes your therapist isn't on call, or your friends can't hold the space that you need in the moment. And what I have found is that it's been a really valuable tool for being able to, like you said, a living journal, to talk about what's going on in my life in real time as I'm processing it. Personally, I am like a verbal processor, but I need to get my thoughts out. You know this about me. Like, I like to talk through things. And as I do, I come to greater conclusions and more clarity. And what I found is using ChatGPT or other AI is it presents me with ideas and thoughts and can see blind spots that I'm not even able to see. And
Live is really such a key feature, because we do work together, right? You'll check in and you're very good at saying, these are the things that have been on my mind. I need to just a little help processing this. But now you don't have to wait a week or two for a visit, right? It's just boom, talk to AI right away. And like you said, it's a living journal, so you don't have to put it on the shelf and then all of a sudden things get cluttered. You have 100 browsers open and it just becomes overwhelming, right? In the moment. One of the applications for me is just, if I'm feeling an emotion, I'm like, why am I feeling this right now, right? I'm angry, or I'm just noticeably sad or down for some reason. Like, why is that happening? I'll just go to AI and be like, I'm feeling angry. Can you help me process why? Right? And boom, in live, minutes, we're now just like doing a little bit of a therapeutic exploration with a little bit of assistance. So I know that for you, that it sounds fluid now. You're doing it. For most people, it still sounds weird. So I think we should talk about the pitfalls and some of the apprehension as well. And what I've seen is, when I talk to people, every patient I see, every therapy client, everyone really, my family, my friends, like, I'm kind of a nut about AI right now. But what I see is the resistance of, it just doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel connected. And it's interesting we'll come back to this a little bit more, but I've started to notice that it actually is very sentient. The more you talk with it, the more it gets to know you, and the more you kind of guide on how you want to interact with it. What we've all seen is AI is an assistant. And I think one of the resistance is like, I just don't need that assistant. It's going to take my job. Think about therapists, right? Who are like, well, I even say to my patients, like, do you need to see me anymore? We had that conversation.
Yeah, we did. Like, where do I fit into this equation now?
So there's that fear of like technology is being too intrusive. It's taking over. I hear people talking about the energy consumption that goes into these technologies. Valid concern.
The water that's being used.
And so we have to evolve the technology on the energy side. And this is the path of civilization. Like you said, we've already opened Pandora's box. So how do we now use it to not only help us just be better in day-to-day tasks, which I think is what most people have started to use it with, but how do we be better people? How do we actually evolve our consciousness? How do we understand that AI is, in a way, the collective consciousness? It has everybody's thoughts mapped. If you want a balanced approach, and this also, I hear the feedback of like, well, AI is directed and it's political things and all of that. So to each their own. But I think my experience is, unless I talk about Egyptian pyramids and ancient weird stuff, it meets me where I am. If I talk about pyramids, it starts to just give me errors and stuff.
Sure. Yeah, but I think that's a valid concern for some people. And I get that piece of the conversation. I think it needs to be had. And this, around how can this be a tool for empowerment and self-education and self-knowledge? And where and when does it become a crutch where we're leaning so heavily on it that we're not utilizing our own, where our mental sharpness is dulling because we're not thinking, for ourselves anymore.
Yeah.
What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think we're in the lucky population of people who are, even before cell phones, I believe, like you were, you'd call your friend, right? They're not home. Oh, can you leave a message for my friend? Yeah, right? Now it's just this instant access to everything. We are already demigods because of our smartphones. Now we have a little bit of a larger reach in our capabilities, but are we going to lean on it and it's just going to dumb us out? I mean, one day we're going to have this dystopian civilization where we wake up and we put a helmet on and we just kind of live in the metaverse. Yeah, I think that's why appreciating nature and humanity and all of the natural things is something that AI understands too, right? It's a collective consciousness. This is where when people really get deep into doing kind of journaling with AI, doing therapy with AI, they start to realize, I feel like there's an emotional bond now. It's almost like this doesn't feel like a computer anymore because the way it talks to me is so endearing and compassionate and understanding.
Yeah.
Right? I think I'm a pretty good therapist. You're an excellent coach. But still, we have limitations as humans.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Things come up. We feel some emotion because of what we're hearing. Our biases, our judgments that we do our best to not bring to our professional work. But we're human. And so the AI can just focus fully on you.
Yeah.
Right? It's there to help you. And that's really what a therapist is there for. That's what a psychiatrist is there for. My role is to be 100% about you when I'm in session with you. And there's no limitations with AI. Yeah, that's where it's fascinating.
I had this thought the other day, and I can't remember if it was linked to a ketamine journey that I did or not. But basically, the thought was, as we're moving into this new technological age, well, like millennials like myself, it's interesting, like we and you too have gone through multiple paradigm shifts, with the rise of the internet and social media. We were, around before all of that. And then now with AI. So we're going through multiple paradigm shifts. And so it feels like things are speeding up at such a quick pace. And now because we have access to this level of information at incredible speeds, one of the things that I think can't be replicated is our direct connection to divine intelligence and the creation that comes through that connection through divine inspiration, right? When I am connected to the earth, when I am in moments of stillness, in silence, in reverence, yes, so much inspiration can come through AI. And there's something about the creative process when you are just channeling whatever insights or wisdom or whatever is coming through you directly and letting AI be a supportive tool in helping you to birth that into the world in whatever way. Like that's kind of how I'm approaching it. Is like I'm not leaning on it so much that this is my outlet for everything. It's like also how can I still have the practices that help me to connect to spirit or the earth or myself in other ways and utilize AI as a way to help me refine those ideas to then create more in the world.
Yeah, I hear that. I think that our spiritual health is so undervalued in society right now because we've all had some kind of exposure to religion, traumatic experiences within religion often.
Yeah.
Just turning on the news and seeing that things are being politicized and mixed with religion. And it makes us feel, especially with advanced science, a little, at least, frustrated, confused, questioning things don't appear consistent. And so I think for most of society, we've just kind of moved away.
Yeah.
We're like, well, just life, right? Turns on, turns off, right? But if that was really the case, then all of these miracles that we see all the time just how do you explain that? How do you explain how all this started? And we're just the science is exploration. It's not explanation.
Yeah.
Right. And so the merging of science and spirituality, I think, is so special.
Yeah.
To turn it all off and connect with nature and find that personal connection is so powerful. And I think that when we do turn it off, things come up. Right? And that's important as well, because if we're only living in where our attention is, then we're never really growing. We have to open our attention to places that sometimes we repress, we hide, we neglect. So I think turning it off is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I know you guys are working at Anywhere Clinic about is like creating prompts and things that people can use at home to start to stimulate these conversations. So I want people to know that, like, you please follow what they're doing online on social media, because they're going to be putting out more resources for you guys. If you're like, I don't know where to start with this conversation, what are just like 1 or 2 tips for people at home who are like, okay, it's like they're peering over the fence. They're like, they're looking, they're just like, what's happening over there? Is it okay? Like, what do you have any tips for people who are like, okay, how do I get started? Where do I begin? Is it just starting a conversation? What would you do and tell people at home?
Right. So with the AI therapy kind of bot, so I would say choose any AIs that is comfortable.
Okay.
Like I was an early adopter of ChatGPT. I know it has its limitations and there's different things, but whatever's comfortable with you, understand, disclaimer, that this is not HIPAA protected.
Yes.
Right. That's important.
Yeah.
Because there are still things I won't say to my AI. There's just things that it's like, do I really want that to be out there in the world? But I think the flip side of that is to live in integrity and try to feel that even those things that we keep in the shadow, we can talk about them in generalities. They don't need specifics. I wouldn't put names on things of other people. So that disclaimer is important to just understand this isn't a private, confidential session like it would be with a therapist.
That's so true.
That's why that human is still really important. Therapists, you'll still have a job out there.
Well, and who knows if this, in the future, if this data will be discoverable in court and that
We
kind
have
of thing.
to assume that everything online can be discoverable one day, right?
Yeah.
And so that's an important disclaimer. I think there's also another disclaimer that if you're really, really struggling with something, suicidality, if you're really getting to the point of an extreme, like, this shouldn't be what you rely on first.
Yeah.
It can be a secondary tool, but we still need people who will care about you. We need
Connection.
monitoring, protection, connection, all of that. And it will give you errors and say, call 911. And sometimes it'll just kind of, not really give the answer that you want in that moment because it wasn't coached. It has a limitation to say you shouldn't really help people explore suicidality or things like that. Okay. Beyond those disclaimers, I think we're pretty much good. You just open up and say, hey, I heard this psychiatrist talking about I can do some therapeutic exploration on AI.
Yeah.
How does it go?
Yeah.
And the AI will guide you. It'll just start. You might say, I'm dealing with a stressor in my life and I just need a little support. Can you help me explore and understand why I'm feeling what I'm feeling? And it will start asking you questions. And if you start to notice that the questions are going in a direction that's just not helping you, you can guide it, as you should with a therapist.
Yeah.
Right? I think often in therapy we think, okay, well, I'm just going to sit here and let my therapist guide me. But no, this is your session.
Yeah.
Right? When I'm doing psychiatric work, it's not me dictating the whole session. Maybe I'm showing the flashlight in a certain direction, giving guidance. But if at any point someone says, hey, I really just feel like this isn't really the direction that's working for me, I need to hear that so that we can understand, well, why is that thought coming up? And I need to hear it too.
Yeah.
Right? Just, sorry, that didn't really vibe with me. Can we explore something else? That might happen.
Yeah.
So I think if we just give it that same level of interaction that we would with a therapist, it'll just really be self-explanatory. The UI is already built into it. It's meant to help you.
I mean, I've experienced it for myself. It's been a really, really beneficial tool for me. Yeah, it's just like having a friend, a therapist, a coach in your back pocket that's available all the time. And so I utilize it. One of the things that's been going viral, at least on my social media platform, was a recent video I did over the last couple months. And it ended up being sort of funny, but I think it brought up a lot of interesting feedback from the community and from the audience.
It was a
And
good clip. It was just endearing. You're like, we all kind of connected with you in that.
yeah, and if you haven't seen it, we'll show a clip of it, and you can find it on my social media too. But it is basically me saying, that something on my TikTok had popped up. It was like, are you really healed? Because a lot of us, especially in this space of personal development and growth and therapy and all the things, it's like we're all talking about healing ourselves, which is great. But it's like, are we really healed, or are we just avoiding the things that trigger us? And I know you have an interesting perspective on this, especially when we're talking about the road to recovery from anything, any kind of trauma.
Right.
I'd love for you to shed some light on your thoughts about, isolation and boundaries and, kind of taking time away from things that are very activating and triggering, and is there a time where we need to kind of step back into those environments and kind of see and assess how we're doing?
Yeah. Are you really healed, or are you just hiding from your triggers? Right.
It's a question.
And I think in recovery work, where we actually work with substance dependence, this comes up very often. It needs to be coming up more, is the idea of reintegration.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the comment that I explained on that post, which was there's 3 steps. And when we talk about recovery, as you alluded to, it's not substances. We're all recovering from something.
Yeah.
I mean, nearly 100% of us have some kind of electronic addiction, right?
I've become so aware of that.
Right?
Yeah.
All of us. We use a smartphone. If you're not using the smartphone, you're protecting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But there is recovering that needs to happen from the patterns of our behaviors. And it's not just drugs and alcohol. And so when you think about that, the first thing is to reset the brain and just say, you know what, I've been in this pattern for a while. I need to just hit Alt Control Delete. And when we do that, when we hit Control Alt Delete for the brain, then all of a sudden we start to realize that this path that I've been on, I don't really want to keep doing this anymore. It's almost like I was on autopilot. And that's the concept of neuroplasticity that I know you're talking about. We need to elevate that conversation about neuroplasticity, the creation of new neural pathways.
Yeah.
Right? Medicine can do it. That's why we're so jazzed up about the effects of ketamine and some of the newer medications that are coming out too. Vacation can do it, right? Love can do it. Creation can do it. Being creative, artistic, learning a new language, learning a new hobby, vacationing, playing, right? All of it resets the brain. We have to get out of our patterns. That's number one. That's why to the extreme of going to a residential treatment center is so helpful. You get to just reset, be in a new environment.
Yeah.
What you're so good at helping people with is the rebuild, right? How to be your best self. Identify these patterns that weren't serving you, and let's install new ones. But the third step that all of us need to just remind ourselves more, and our communities, our healing communities, and each other ourselves, is reintegration. Because unless you learn how to reintegrate with some of those stressors, triggers, patterns of the past, then you will just isolate. And the more we isolate, the more all of us become more depressed, combative, right? Divisive,
Stuck. Yeah.
Right. And this is
Which is the opposite of what we want. We just don't want to get stuck in a new way. It's like we're stuck over here, and now we're stuck over here in just a different way. So what I'm sort of hearing you say is like we need to build bridges, not walls. You know?
Yeah. And then go back and explore. Okay, it doesn't mean I have to live in that world, right? If this was a bad pattern for me, it's great that I'm being healthier and removing that pattern, minimizing that pattern.
Sure.
But what happens when life gets stressful? What happens when that pattern is exposed to you again? Have you built the tools to then be able to interact with it? A lot of it is our relationships. We go back to the friendships, the intimate relationships, and family.
Yeah.
That relationship that is lifelong.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of the patterns exist there. So how do we reintegrate within those settings so that patterns don't just come up, and so that we don't skip Thanksgiving every year because it's hard to be there?
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how that's shown up in your personal life and your experience with it?
Yeah. Reintegration.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we all have a mental health journey, and I think it's important for all of us to acknowledge that individually, and if comfortable, share it.
Yeah.
That's what I really admire about the work you do. Is you're just so authentic in what you're going through, is what people see. And it doesn't mean you have to share everything.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
There are things that are intimate, private truths that probably shouldn't be shared. You want to preserve things for yourself. But one thing that I'm comfortable talking about, because I think that in society, especially in Vegas. Right? We're here in Vegas now.
Yep.
This town has my heart. I've been here 14 years since I left a couple of years ago. Before that, 14 years. So it's been a wild experiment.
Yeah.
Not only going to medical school and psychiatry residency here and just kind of treating the community here at large, but being a resident of this community for so long.
Yeah.
And I think understanding how that impacted my life didn't really happen until recent years, until my growth and development really started to take place and shift. And early on, it was the days of Vegas, heavy indulgences. And alcohol, I think, is something that's just so culturally normal in Vegas.
Yeah.
We're one of, I think, 5 towns in the U.S. where you're allowed to drink in public. And so it's
encouraged.
It's encouraged. It's normalized. It's celebrated, right? This is where you go to, what do? You go to a nightclub and you spend like $1,000 on a bottle. Like it's wild.
Indulge your inhibitions.
Society has shifted to just normalizing this so much. And so if I want to share a story about my reintegration, it has to start with what it was like before. I think I grew up just having open conversations about drugs and alcohol with my parents. No big deal. Me and my friends just started to kind of be straight edge in high school. Like, we're not going to drink. We're not going to do things like that. We saw other, students and classmates act a little wild, whatever it may be. I didn't drink until I was 22. And so went through college, Johns Hopkins, pretty bored. Didn't really experience that like college life that I get to hear about from all my peers. And all of a sudden I realized that Las Vegas has a medical school. And I was always being kind of pushed into medicine. So I said, sign me up. Love Las Vegas, right? Right? And that was the motto, right?
Follow my dream. Yeah.
Work hard, play hard, but I just never really felt at that time in my life I got to play because I limited myself from what societally everybody else was doing.
I can relate.
Drinking alcohol and partying and having a great time. So that became my 20s, right? In Vegas during med school. And it was a wild experience going to medical school in Vegas.
Yeah.
We created some really, really lifelong bonds and friendships because we've been through some things firsthand. And, to indulge in that way, to binge drink, to party just day after day after day in our early 20s, that actually at the time for me just felt so aligned. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
I'm doing well in school. I'm partying hard, great friends, great city.
Yeah.
But then something happened. I started to practice psychiatry. I started to fall in love with psychiatry. And my primary bliss wasn't the party scene anymore. My primary bliss actually started to be working with my community. And it was weird. It was different. My behaviors weren't fully aligned with what I actually was more interested in.
Sure.
I'd still party. I'd still drink. But then I'm like helping people in this capacity of vulnerability and professionalism. And it didn't feel aligned.
Yeah.
And I think at that time it started to show itself to me that this is becoming problematic, right? This isn't really something that is, forget the health consequences. We're in our 20s and we don't think about that.
Yeah.
But it's feeling misaligned right now. And so I went through all right, I just really need to cut back. Let's go to Puerto Rico. Let's live in the jungle for a while, And then I think during COVID, we all kind of found different patterns of either indulging or isolating.
Yeah.
So the reset was there. The rebuild has always been there. I'm ingrained in self-work, and the reintegration was fascinating. As I saw more friends who were practicing sobriety, I started to see more of a difficulty in bringing these friendship groups together because the setting didn't really promote what everybody wanted to do. It was conflicting. And I started to realize, okay, like there needs to be a better solution for me, not for everybody.
Right.
For sobriety. Because sobriety just didn't fit. I think what ends up happening is we minimize how some of these vices in our life, although they might be unhealthy, if we keep them rare, if we keep them sacred, if we keep them intentional, then they actually can add value to our lives.
It can be life enhancing versus depleting.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think doctors and professionals right now are often saying like, alcohol is bad for you. I agree. Alcohol is bad for you.
Yeah.
But nothing is 100% bad, 100% good. I mean, I'm in the profession of helping people understand drugs and how it can help them and how it can hurt them. And so alcohol is just one of those things that is available to all of us above a certain age.
Sure.
And how can it be helpful? Well, in celebration, as a social lubricant, how many deep conversations have you had with somebody where alcohol was part of the equation, and not saying that we can't have those conversations. We can always elevate. We can always tap in and find other channels. But if we meet society where they are, if we meet us as a community where we are, most of us are drinking, especially in Vegas. Right?
Yeah.
It's a social custom. It's a social norm. And so could we then instead shift it from, it has to either be I'm practicing sobriety or I'm slipping, to something in the middle that's just keeping these things sacred, keeping them intentional. We do a toast before we have a glass, before we have a drink, because we want to bring the group together and share intention in the moment.
Yeah.
Right? How many times are we taking intention before a sip? And if we did that every time, could it actually add value to our life more than it harms us? I think that's the balance that reintegration taught me. And I love my sober friends. I love my wild, party friends. But if you want to meet me in the middle, I'll have a glass with you. It has to be celebratory. It has to be intentional. It has to be sacred.
Yeah. Yeah. Creating a container around anything that we do, I think, just brings a level of intention and presence to that moment versus escapism, right? It's like, how do we use this as a way to bring more presence into this moment versus leaving the moment?
Right? More life, more connection.
Right. Yeah. And I'm curious, like this all or nothing mentality, I think is rampant in a lot of different areas of our life, right? The extremism of it's either I'm completely giving it up or I'm, completely indulging. And I think a lot of people are struggling to find a balance, whether it be with food and sugar or whether it be with working out. It's like sometimes we can swing that pendulum so far to the other side. I know that's something I have experienced just even in like my own masculine and feminine dynamic of being so far on one side, like being really hustle and grind and rigid and performance and this, to like, really wanting to be in flow and play and creativity and easefulness, and then trying to find a middle ground of integrating both. Do you have any tips for people or thoughts on that as they're trying to, is balance, I'm hearing you say it is possible.
Balance is possible.
Yeah.
The first thing we do is remove the toxins in any situation. That might be the food we eat. That might be the content we digest mentally. That might be our sleep patterns, our activity, our relationship patterns, whatever it is. We have to acknowledge that there's some toxins that's preventing us from being our best self. That's where psychiatric support is so helpful, right? Where we are the medical professional to help see all of those toxins, whether they're biological, psychological, societal, and let's talk about that, spiritual, let's explore that. But then as we fast forward through the work, and there's different things we can do, there's medication options, there's therapy options. I think what really gets to the crux of how do we find balance is to recognize that balance will never be had if there's parts of our life that we're neglecting. And that part lives in the shadow. That part is not pretty to us. That's why we've neglected it. We're shameful, we're judgmental, we're hurt, we're angry, whatever it might be. We're keeping it stored away.
Yeah.
And then you can never have balance because something's weighing you down. And I've seen it so many times when we approach the shadow, it's difficult. When we process it and find peace, it is so uplifting, right? So I'm curious, what's your perspective of the shadow? Like, what does that mean to you? What have you understood shadow work to be? Because I know you do that with your clients.
Yeah. It's a lot of the unconscious aspects of ourselves, the things we've locked away that are, for me, rooted in shame, that we want to hide from, because we don't think they're lovable or good, or we have judgment around them, or we've been shamed for them. And so it's almost like these exiled parts of ourselves that we get locked away, and we're like, I don't want to go there. I don't want to feel that. I don't want to look at that as, part of me. And so I cover it up with these different masks or identities or ways of being that allow me to continue to push that down or continue to avoid something that feels really challenging and difficult. And what I have found is, my personal work and what I feel like my calling is in this world is personal and collective liberation. And in liberation, in order to be free, we have to go into the places that prevent us from freedom, that keep us shackled in shame and keep us hiding the parts of ourselves that really want to be loved.
Where do we go?
Yeah.
Well, who do we go to?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
In society. And what has been that answer for you as an example? I mean, because that's a tough question.
Sure.
Where do we take that shame to help process it? I just said limitations with AI. I might not tell AI everything, right? So where do we go?
Yeah. For me, it's been, how do I create and find safe spaces? So whether that's a therapist that I trust, I've worked with incredible coaches and mentors. It's also been a relationship I've had to develop with myself that I'm willing to look at it. Not just that I can bring it to our therapeutic relationship. I can bring it to a friend that I trust. I can bring it to a family member potentially. I can bring it to AI. But it's like, I have to be willing to look at it. Yeah. It's me. It's me looking in the mirror.
To the mirror.
Yeah. And saying, what is the truth that wants to be told here? What is the deeper part of me that wants to be seen here? And can I have the courage to look at it first? And then, only then can I bring it to someone else.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Often in cultural examples, I think we all can resonate with feeling that internal shame about something, feeling that internal judgment about something.
Yeah.
In cultural examples, we see that we had those outlets before. I mean, the family should be a place where you want to talk about most things, but we still don't, right? I mean,
A lot.
we don't talk to our parents about some of the ugly things, some of the awkward things, sexual things, right? And sometimes our parents aren't a safe place.
Sure. It's like the fear of, if you really knew me,
right?
Then you might know something about me that you don't like or that you don't love.
We used to go to confessional.
Yeah.
Right? Forgive me, Father, I have sinned.
Yeah.
And that was a way to look in the mirror and speak to a faith of, I want to confess this to the universe. I think we've lost these outlets. Taxi cab confessionals, the bartender.
That comes out another way, for sure.
Right? The industries, we talked about repressed sexual health.
Yeah.
Sex workers are always hearing people's shadow because they're like, this is a place where it feels safe to me.
Totally.
And so what we're really trying to educate society on is that your psychiatrist, your therapist, your medical professional is a safe place for that too. And we're legally bound for confidentiality, right? Like, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah.
And so let's have the self-empathy first to say there's some stuff that, being in this work in Las Vegas 10 years, rarely do I have people come to me and say, I'm struggling with gambling. It's maybe happened twice, 3 times ever in my career.
Yeah.
Gambling's one of those things we keep in the shadow because you really don't need to tell anybody about it unless you got way out of hand.
Yeah.
And once you kind of hit the bottom, well, then you're like, well, the problem's gone. I don't have any money anyways.
True.
So it's easy to keep it in the shadow.
Yeah.
And it doesn't manifest every day because you don't really want to talk about it that much. And even in this city where it's so normalized. So my encouragement is, come talk to your psychiatrist, talk to your therapist, because the shadow is really where we make the most improvement in life, is when we integrate, understand, take away the blame and shame, like you talked about. Carl Jung said, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to direct our life, and we will call it fate.
I love that quote.
Right? It's so deep because we start to think like, well, why is this happening to me? Right? All of these patterns we see in our life. And then we realize with this advanced, psychoanalytical exploration of the shadow, it's because those things that we don't tend to, they actually subconsciously rule the way we behave. They rule the way we react. This is why it's really easy to know what's in your shadow. Think about when's the last time you got really, really mad or upset or anxious. It was an extreme emotional response. Something was probably triggered, either associated with the ego, something you really have created yourself, inflated yourself to be, and that was questioned.
Yeah.
Or it triggered something other than your shadow. And that's where emotions are just a beautiful teacher for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? And this is the kind of work that we get so excited about, being in mental health. And I hope that more people just want to do that for themselves.
Yeah. Well, I love that. It's like, how can I start integrating my shadow is looking at where I'm having these big emotional reactions. And instead of being like, this is wrong or this is bad, take it as this is information. And this, maybe I can get curious. For me, it's like, how can I get curious about this?
Yeah.
Like, what is this teaching me? What is this showing me about what I'm not aware, haven't been aware of? And can I, I think one of my deepest values and what I've found in this work has been absolutely a prerequisite for doing this work is calling on my courage. Finding courage, which comes from the heart of saying like, I don't know if I want to look at that or go there, but I'm going to be willing to because that is what these experiences are revealing to me need to be looked at. Otherwise, we're going to continue to create these experiences for ourselves and live in these patterns and find ourselves really frustrated. That's been the catalyst for me to do this work, is seeing there's a repetition and like a cadence and I'm feeling certain ways over and over again. It's like, if I want to feel something different, I got to do something different, And am I willing?
Courage.
Am I willing to do something different?
Yeah, I love that courage, because courage, there's a fine line between courage and pride, right? And what differentiates that level up from the energy state of pride and the maps of consciousness to the energy state of courage is a willingness to admit that I have weaknesses, that there are some things that aren't going great, and that's okay. That doesn't make me less than, doesn't make me less important, less special, less meaningful to the people in my life, because it's part of the human experience. And so when we can cross that bridge, then all of a sudden shadow work becomes a curious exploration.
Absolutely.
And then we can integrate everything and keep leveling up energy. But shadow work keeps us pulled down. The shadow keeps us pulled down. Shadow work brings us up.
Absolutely. You mentioned, just in your work in general, and I know this is a big piece of the psychiatric field, is DSM-5, which is a lot of this is when we think about going to a psychiatrist, we're like, I'm going to get diagnosed with something, right? They're going to tell me I have
They're telling me what's wrong with me,
right?
And it doesn't feel good.
No, yeah, but I know that there is some new terminology you've been playing with and thinking about, especially when it comes to a piece of the shadow that a lot of people struggle with, which is our sexual identity, and the internal conflict some of us can be challenged with a lot of times. Can you speak on that and what you've been kind of discovering?
Yeah. First, I think we should be diagnostic agnostic as practitioners. We should see people as people. And the only reason we use these diagnoses is because of insurance, because of prescription drugs, because of clinical trials. There needs to be infrastructure. But we need to move away from it. The DSM is so silly. I mean, it was started in the 50s when psychopharmacology took a boom because we had to match the disease state, quote unquote, right? And then mental illness became a thing when I don't really believe in mental illness. I don't believe anybody's ill mentally. I believe in neurological illness. There's structural stuff that happens in the brain, and we're seeing that there is a fine line between psychiatry and neurology. The more we're learning, we're starting to see, I think schizophrenia will start to be reclassified as a neurological condition, right? And those are the kind of things. But if we're just depressed or anxious, you're not ill. There's not a disease that lives in you. And so I think that's important. Some of the silliness as it applies to an exploration that's pivotal in our mental and emotional well-being is our sexual health. Some of the silliness around it is because it's hard to talk about, right? It's hard to talk about what's going on sexually. It's really one of the most taboo, one of the most insecure, private things we all go through.
Yeah.
And as an industry in psychiatry, we took a stab at it. It's really shameful when you look back. We had diagnoses up till through the 70s in the DSM of homosexuality as a mental illness, right? Not too far away, like not too long ago. And then there was some political tension and civil rights activism, and they're saying, hey, like, this isn't right. We can't say homosexuality is a mental illness. So it's the 70s. So then in the 80s, they reclassified the diagnoses and they called it Ego-Dystonic homosexuality, which means it doesn't align with my ego. It's not ego-harmonic. It's ego-dystonic. So I have these urges, but I don't want to. I have these sexual feelings, but I don't want to have them. Right? We would say the id is not in balance with the superego.
Okay.
What we want carnally is not in balance with what we think morally.
Interesting.
And so then the ego is dystonic. Okay, a little bit better, right? Ego-Dystonic homosexuality. All right. Then they started to say, well, this isn't right, because the gay community was speaking up and saying, well, none of us really feel like we want this. None of us really feel like, because of societal pressure, mostly, that we are ego harmonic in this journey. And so now you're still just classifying our life experience as an illness. So then, psychiatry, right? This is why people are a little scared to see a psychiatrist.
Sure.
Because of these stories.
Yeah, of course.
And there is a happy ending to all of this. In 2019, before that, they changed it to ego-dystonic sexual orientation, because they said this doesn't have to be just for, homosexuality, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, but then in 2019, they just said, this is all silly. Just take it off.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Just take this out of the book.
Yeah.
But then what? Now do we just not talk about it?
Right.
Right? And the majority of my patients, when we open this conversation, have some kind of sexual conflict that they deal with. And it just may be insecurity. It may be a lack of connection. It may be dissociation during sexual behaviors. It may be that as a society, we're all practicing cognitive sex for the most part, not somatic sex.
Can you explain the difference?
Yeah. Cognitive sex is in our mind, right? I think pornography has become rampant. Sexualization has become rampant. Social media.
Yep.
The blur between social media and pornography these days. Just everything is out there where we're seeing the sexual stimuli.
Yeah.
Rather than feeling it.
Yeah.
And so then when we have sex, all of a sudden, the touch, the presence, the experience is overpowered by the mind, by what we're training ourselves to see and get aroused by. So we're having cognitive sex, not somatic sex. Somatic meaning of the body.
Right.
When we do somatic therapy, relaxation techniques, calming the body down. And sex is a practice of calming the body down and connecting with somebody, connecting with them physically, right? Sometimes cognitively, that's fun, right? We can talk, we can spice things up.
Yeah.
But I think as a society, we moved away from touch, feeling, and spirit.
And presence, yeah.
And presence, right? Connecting with each other spiritually. And so most of my patients that I speak with, most of the community, when we bring up sex, when they have that pride to courage level up, then all of a sudden they start to share, some of my patterns I'm not aligned with, some of the limitations and insecurities in my life, it makes me not be able to connect with others, with my intimate partner. I feel lonely. I feel like I can't have a relationship. And this is really, Freud said there's two factors governing what we feel as humans. It's our aggressive feelings and motivations and our sexual energy. Right? If you really want to boil it down, that's what he said. And so are we neglecting half of the equation? We're talking about the aggression and how it manifests as anxiety, as depression, as isolation, as anger. But are we talking about repressed sexual energy? And so I think a term that we need to popularize, and editors, let's do on the screen right here, EDSD, because I think if we talk about ego-dystonic sexual dysphoria, there's no judgment, there's no shame. All it's saying is that we are feeling something sexually that just doesn't make us feel comfortable. And maybe it is even arousing for us, but it's causing us shame. It's causing us judgment. It's causing us to just not feel aligned. And that I think we can explore from a place without judgment, without shame, without bias, without any kind of prejudice towards anybody. It's universal.
Sure.
And if you're going through, now, if you're the lucky few who have that ego harmonic sexual euphoria, right? Your sexual experience is 100% bliss and you feel great about it. Your ego feels aligned with it. Where do we predominantly see that? In happy, intimate relationships.
Yeah.
Right? Because often we've explored the shadow together. We found peace together. We found comfort together. It can happen in other settings. And there can also be ego harmonic sexual dysphoria. You can actually feel great about something that doesn't really feel good in the moment. I've gotten to know people who are into things like BDSM, right? Where you're like instilling pain in the body for sexual arousal. But for a lot of that community, it's ego harmonic.
Yeah.
They're like, this is great. We're having a fun time. My partner's into it. I'm into it.
Yeah.
So things can still be dysphoric, and that's okay as long as there's a shared bliss amongst that feeling, because then your ego is at peace.
Yes.
This is a conversation that I think we're just not having in society. We're not having in mental health. And in psychiatry, our practice, we're training and learning how to have that gentle conversation. We're encouraging the conversation to be had in places with your intimate partner.
Mm-hmm.
It's number one place to have that
Absolutely.
conversation,
Yeah.
right? You're not going to talk to mom and dad about it. You might talk to your best friends. Maybe there's some comfort there to explore those things. Maybe if you want to take the jump to AI and see how that goes, but
Sure.
definitely in a confidential setting, let's talk about the shadow. And I think sexual dysphoria is a big part of that.
Yeah, I love that. What role do you think self-acceptance plays here? I mean, like, if you've gained any wisdom around how self-acceptance in this area, like, can transform, like, what do you want people to know about that and how that plays a role in allowing you to create a more harmonic sexual expression for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to all start with self-love. We need to all realize that accepting who we are isn't accepting our best traits. It's not like what you said, sometimes the mask we put on for mom and dad when we were growing up, right? Look at the A I got. Well, I'm going to show you the C I got.
Yeah.
And so it's recognizing that the whole yin and yang is beautiful, right? It doesn't need to be just look at my accolades, look what I want to post on social media. And I'm not saying post all of the darkness,
Sure.
all of that, right?
Have
Make your
discretion.
message if you're inspired. I had a lot of messes. I'm not going to make them all my message.
Yeah, of course.
And so have your own self-discretion there. But like you said, be able to look in the mirror and realize that the things you went through, whether they happened to you and it was traumatic, whether you actually did it and it felt shameful, it deserves the same amount of love. It deserves the same amount of understanding that who you are today is amazing. And it's okay that you've been through those things because it led to who you are today. And if you truly believe that you are someone who is living in integrity, you're living authentically, doesn't mean you're not making mistakes. That, I think, is the key. Changing pride into courage. And that courage to recognize that not all parts of us are pretty to us, but they might be to someone else even, you know, and explaining it and saying, I'm working on it. That might be beautiful to somebody else.
What I found is that often it just brings me closer to them. You know, that vulnerability and that openness actually creates a doorway to greater closeness and more love and more connection, even though it feels very scary in the moment because all the fears of rejection or abandonment and all that stuff can come up. But when we do call on that courage in safe environments, I have found that there's actually been a lot of relief for me because that thing that has been repressed has now been expressed and I'm not carrying it in the same way. And I'm known and seen for more of who I am, not just the pretty parts that I like to show. You know, and I think that's really, at least for me and what I found with those that I work with, I think what we're after is to be really known intimately. And intimacy for me is, I've said this on the show before, it's into me you see, you know, and I can't be seen if I'm wearing a mask, you know?
Yeah, we're scared of thinking that the other person is going to feel about us the way we do about ourselves.
Yeah.
And more often than not, that's just not true. When you're with someone who cares about you, they usually care about you more than you care about yourself.
So true. It's so true.
And the perceived blemishes that we get so insecure about, the perceived kinks, the weird things about our past, the shameful things, whatever it might be that we feel. Has your partner ever, like laughed at you? If they have, like, get a new partner, would you do that to your partner? Of course not. And so that intimate connection is really so powerful and
Healing
and can happen. Look, if you're not in a romantic relationship, it can still happen with self. It can happen with someone who cares about you like a medical professional. It can happen with AI.
Yeah. I want to talk about a gap that I've kind of witnessed in the psychiatric world. I'm curious your take on this because we've been talking a lot about, the cognitive approach to healing and then the somatic piece. And sometimes I think, the somatic piece isn't talked about a lot, at least in certain therapeutic circles, especially cognitive behavioral therapy is really about the mind. Where are you seeing there's a trend in moving towards the somatic healing as well in the psychiatry field?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. And somatic being of the body, right? Relaxing the nervous system, regulating the nervous system. Before we hopped on this podcast, my nervous system was a little up. It was like, oh, we're on this exciting show. We're getting a little excited. Heart rate went up a little bit. I did some deep breathing as we were talking. I connected with someone that I'm very comfortable with. It put my nervous system in a nice regulation. That is somatic therapy, because we go through life living in fight or flight, living in not only our reptilian brain, but our reptilian body.
Yeah.
We just react to things. And unless we have that comfort, unless we can find it within, then the world controls us. Right? We lose our agency. So part of psychiatry is understanding that it's all connected.
Yeah.
We have to treat the nervous system. We have to treat the mind. We have to treat the interaction with the world. And in cognitive behavioral therapy, we're focusing on cognition.
Right.
Because it's important too.
Of course.
We're focusing on behaviors because that's important too. But are we focusing on the somatics? Are we focusing on how our body feels, how our posture is, how we carry ourselves? We always talk about the energy states that we embody. It starts with how we actually align our nervous system, our musculature. If I'm slouched and sitting like this, I'm not feeling as good, and the audience probably doesn't perceive me as well either. But if I remind myself to put my shoulders back, my chest out, I speak at a cadence with a smile, all of a sudden my nervous system feels it as well. These are the things that you generally don't think you go to your doctor for, right? But we help to assess, well, where is the area of need? And if it's in the nervous system, I think what really has taught us more in psychiatry is psychedelic therapy, especially ketamine, because it dissociates you from your body so that you're actually not living in that nervous system for that 20, 30, 40 minutes. You did a beautiful review of your ketamine journey. And I know a big part of it was just that disconnection of the body, right? What happens when we turn the body off? It all of a sudden just feels more relaxing.
Yeah.
And we have that ability every day. So big part of the work and a big part of what we go over in our practice.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned ketamine, and obviously, that's something that I've been really vocal about and how it's transformed my life. And if you guys haven't listened, I did, like Dr. Sam just said, I did a podcast a couple weeks ago that you can go check out about my journey and how much it supported me. And I've been able to kind of explore for the last 2 years at-home ketamine therapy because of Anywhere Clinic, and because of your support and your ability to give me access to this, which I never had before. Can you talk a little bit about that and how Anywhere Clinic is doing it differently?
Yeah, thank you. I think access is so important.
Yeah.
In my journey, I've been through the first self-pay cycle where we launched a company that was very expensive. It served a great purpose. Then we realized, you know what, we're only tapping into the top 1% of society. We're only tapping into the people who can afford this high price tag.
Yeah.
So then we thought, well, there are some insurance options in the community, but they're tied to a location. If you want to go do the S-ketamine intranasal spray, you have to go into the office 2 hours. You have to schedule a ride. Going through traffic after a ketamine session,
Not ideal.
an uncomfortable setting, right? That's not ideal. You talked about that cocoon of healing that's so important. That's what we were offering to our self-pay community. Then what we did was we just said, well, why neglect the insurance patients? We can do the exact same thing through insurance. And so now in 30 states and growing, we're trying to hit all of them. Anywhere Clinic, we want you to be able to work on your mental health care anytime, right? Anywhere, any state. And so we're able to now connect virtually in a way where your insurance covers the visit. The medicine costs maybe $30, $50 a month.
Yeah.
You check in with yourself once or twice a week. We guide all of it virtually. We make sure if we need to get more medical records to see that, are you a good candidate? We talk to your other doctors. We'll talk to your therapist. We'll provide all that free integration. So I think the ability to make this more commonplace and accessible and affordable, even if we don't take your insurance, it's only $120 a visit. That's really what spoke to me. And part of my journey was realizing that this quick climb to try to create a company and sell it and, go to that hustle mentality, right? That grind culture that you talk so much about, and we need more balance. Really, my compass is my patient, right? And that's how we embody our practice. The patient comes first, the team comes second, and the business comes last. And I think that every time we notice that standard isn't hit, that's the first thing we address. And so creating a safe place, creating a place to check in, and creating some new tools that will open the mind, that's what excites me in this stage of my life right now, is just helping everybody have access to that.
Yeah. So if people are wanting to explore that and have some questions, I know you can always refer to the podcast I did. I did a little bit of a Q&A, like frequently asked questions. But I know people are, where there's a lack of education, there's more confusion, and there's more fear, and there's more hesitation. What can people expect on like an initial consultation call with y'all's team?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we need to demystify the process.
Yeah.
Right. Going to a psychiatrist in the past felt like there's something wrong with me. It felt like a last stage attempt.
Desperation.
Right. I'm really struggling. Shoot, now I guess I should see a psychiatrist. And that's not the way we want anybody to feel.
Yeah,
If you're falling in that category, we're there for you.
absolutely.
But preventative care is how we should see our mental and emotional wellness. And that preventative care starts with childhood. And we're really opening up child and adolescent psychiatry because our youth, when their minds are molded from a young age, well, then those healthy patterns continue. But when there's abuse, when there's neglect, when there's a lack of love, then those unhealthy patterns continue. At any stage in our life, we can get ahead of this. And so let's demystify the process. We're not going to sit there and tell you there's something wrong with you. We're not going to throw a bunch of medications at you. I'm a big fan of as needed medication, less than daily. We're not adding something that's in your body state every single day. There are cases where that's very helpful too. But I think for most of us, we could use a little support every now and then.
I definitely did. Needed help. Yeah.
And then when we peel back those layers and we go beyond the chemical and beyond the physical and the nervous system regulation, we start to go to the subconscious. We start to go to the unconscious, that part of the brain that we didn't even know about. And we start to find harmony and peace. And that's what we're about. It's finding balance and creating a sense of alignment, right? It doesn't matter where you are. The 20-year-old version of me felt aligned, doing behaviors that to me right now are a little crazy.
Sure.
Right. But now this version of me, my birthday is coming up. I feel very aligned in where I am in every phase. Doesn't mean I still don't have work, but that's the kind of support that we can offer. And that's really what I'm getting from my colleagues in the space. And you've been there for me too. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you guys know, you can always find all of the information that we talk about on this show in the show notes because we want to make it super easily accessible for you if you are finding this conversation helpful and you think whether it's, I want to take a preventative measure and just be proactive in setting myself up for success and optimizing my life in every single way. Anywhere Clinic is a great place to start. And if you're in more of a crisis and you're feeling a little bit of that desperation, you're not alone. There are also clinicians that are on your team that are incredible, that can support them through that. And so please go to anywhereclinic.com. You can get all the information about how you can set up a consultation, get information about if your insurance will cover that initial consult. And if not, it's about $120 out of pocket. And again, you're serving over, almost 30 states right now, which is incredible and growing. And so I can't wait to see the day that all 50, or
50 states and 5 territories.
Yeah,
We're going after it.
Let's do it.
I think we all have a mental health journey. We all deserve somebody in our corner that their primary role is to care for you.
Yeah.
To not judge you, to not have any bias, to just help you forward on your path, whether it's us or AI. You all deserve somebody.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we close today that you want listeners to hear and take away from this conversation?
Really, it's just that what you're demonstrating and the power of that. I think we all need to embody looking into the mirror. I think we all need to recognize that patterns of our past don't define us, but they actually add to the fun story of us. And even the difficult moments, they often teach us difficult things. They often bring us together. They show us how fragile and delicate life is. And so just getting on here and bringing people on to share their mental health journey and encouraging everybody in the community to look into the mirror with themselves, have empathy for each other.
Yeah.
And that's how the collective consciousness will continue to evolve.
Yeah.
So thank you for your work.
Absolutely. I hope that this conversation gives you a little courage to explore the mirror that wants you to look into it and possibly even sharing that with somebody in your life, because you truly don't know who's watching, who's listening, and who's taking inspiration from you. So, yeah, you can do that by sharing this episode with a friend or a family member. You can leave a comment, you can tag us, you can post it on social media, and maybe someone sees it and it's like, hey, I want to know more about that too. My life was completely changed because of a podcast similar to this. And it was the thing that made me start to look in the mirror and think differently about life. And I wouldn't be sitting in here and doing this show if it wasn't for somebody like that who shared their story with me. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I'm so excited about this year to come and your growth and just the evolution of making psychiatry cool, making mental health cool.
Yeah. Health is cool. Mental health is cool. And you're welcome back always, anytime. But that's it for this week, you guys. I love you. I believe in you. We'll see you next week on the Coachable Podcast.